Shalom, giving all praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachahakorash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders at Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations, as always, to the elect. In the news, all right, and I wanted to do a response, all right, to a lesson done by the beloved Akim, all right, here in the GMS London camp. As you can see the page, GMS Prisoners of Hope 3. Subscribe and be edified. As you can see the title of this video, The Root Cause of the Immigration Crisis, the West's Legacy of Violent Conquest, which also ties to the colonial periods, because what America has done and is doing is nothing but a forwarding of colonization, going back to the Spanish, the French, the British, and really it goes all the way back, okay, to the Renaissance, okay, which after the 1,000-year period where the biblical Edomites were down and out, chased up into the caves, looked down upon, you had so-called black gods that were worshipped, although Jake was going off, okay, being and looking like an Edomite wasn't the end thing, okay, and Edomites were known, all right, to be creeps, freaky. You didn't want them near your dogs, you see, and that was for an 1,000-year period, all right, and scripturally, let's get that in Revelation, the 20th chapter, which we have whole breakdowns on this. Revelation 20:7, and when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison. Okay, and a lot of people, get this misconstrued as if the literal spiritual demon Satan is in, doing 1,000 years in some prison underground, and he gets out, he grabs his wallet and his wave cap that was taken from him when he was seized and put in prison. Okay, and he goes back into the earth, destroying and burning everything up. No, we know, pursuant to the book of 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, there is a nation of people, of men associated with bringing about the workings of Satan. And the word Satan itself, right? The word Satan, Santanas, or Satanas, or Santana, all right, it just means adversary. One who opposes other in purpose or act, okay? And it can be also a Satan-like man, okay? So this is speaking of the biblical Edomites, which the scriptures told you would come, all right, with all signs, lines, and wonders, deceiving people with the vibration of Satan. That's 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, 8 through 9. And many will be deceived, but when he came out of those caves to fulfill biblical prophecy of the blessing given unto him by Isaac of world domination, it started with the Renaissance, which was the rebirth of the Greco-Roman Empire, mainly Rome, because Rome is what gave them their power. So after the 1,000 years were expired, where Esau, Edom was down and out after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, Jake was ruling, and Jake and Esau, via the bubonic and bubonic plague, all right, and ultimately prophecy being fulfilled, as it says in the book of, let's get the book of Malachi, the 1st chapter. In the 4th verse, it says, whereas Edom said, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. All right. And when you look up this word return, it speaks directly to the Renaissance, which the word Renaissance means rebirth. All right. And again, we've been showing you how a lot of what you see happening in this political theater, this left right paradigm, OK, fast food, the Colosseum, the so-called holy days that we see being celebrated, it all goes back to the ancient, all right, Western Roman Empire. And there's also remnants of Greek culture, and all of the philosophers and, so-called wise men of the Greco-Roman Empire Okay, all of their ideas were reborn into the earth via the Renaissance period, which means rebirth. So the word here is shawab. It says to return unto, to go back, to come back. Okay, to restore, refresh. And again, you look up the definition. Okay. Okay, the word Renaissance means the revival of art and literature under the influence of the classical models, and the classical deals with what? The Greco-Roman Empire. Okay. Again, the Renaissance intellectual basis was founded upon humanism, derived on the concept of Roman and the rediscovery of classical Greek philosophy. And that's what is ruling and dominating the world today. So as they were reborn, as we see here, Edom said, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith the Lord, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness. So everything that they've rebuilt is going to be thrown down. All right. And they're going to be known as the people against whom the Lord had indignation forever. And they're still here. They're ruling today. Okay. And you can't say that we're going off for saying that they're here today, because Netanyahu called the Palestinians Amalek to justify kicking their asses out of the land. Anyway, okay, when you go back to Revelation, the 20th chapter, all right, Revelation 20:7, and when 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth. Okay. And he deceived the nations, all right, with the spreading of his false Christianity, with the sword, drugs, fire water. Okay. And we're going to get into how that colonial period, all right, ruined countries. All right. And it's going to lead to Gog and Magog gathering many nations for World War III. Okay. So, again, watch this video the brothers did, because me and the beloved brother Shakal were speaking earlier, this brother here, and we were talking about it. And we were talking about how when you look at immigration, all right, it's one of the main things that, the Trump administration and even the Biden administration, a lot of people forget Biden had, the Northern Kingdom locked in cages, had them on display. All right. But you have this big fuss. We know that this land was stolen from the natives. All right. Which fulfilled prophecy. All right. As a matter of fact, let's get the book of Micah. Right. Micah chapter 2:1. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds when the morning is light. They practice it because it is in the power of their hands. And the Lord gave these devils power. And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. So not only do they go and dominate people, all right, they dominate their heritage, misplace them, all right, bring in democracy, teach them educations and things that ruin and go against the culture of the people who are of that land. All right. And confusion follows. All right. And what follows is corporations being built, okay, to exploit the resources that are in those lands. And the people there are oppressed, are misplaced, destroyed. All right. And generations later, they start to leave those lands. Because when you look at places like South America, all right, Jamaica, a lot of places in Africa, a lot of those people, if they were just left there, okay, contrary to what Esau Edom teaches you, okay, because what does Esau Edom teach you? What does he say? Okay, stop whining. MAGA pastor claims slavery was a blessing for black people. And he says this for all of the nations that he dominates. Pretty much you were a primitive people with no culture. Okay, you were just sitting there with your lip hanging, wasting the land. You had all of these resources and you didn't know how to use them, which is a complete lie. And basically the fact that we dominated you and stole all of your resources was really a blessing to you. Okay. This is Esau's pseudoscience. And again, this is the gospel of Jesus Christ. Okay. Stop crying. Stop being a little boy. Okay. Let's listen to him. This is the mindset of Esau Edom.
Hey, cut it out. You need to grow up. Stop throwing a fit. You're throwing a tantrum. Stop being a little boy. You're whining and crying about something that's ultimately your fault. Yeah. Stop blaming it on other people. It's your fault. Because here's the deal. It's like, what was slavery? The richest black people on God's green earth are African Americans. If slavery never happened, then you would be in a grass hut.
Basically, that's the pseudoscience tied to him justifying what he did. And we'll go back to this. Okay. But when you look at the people that were natural in these lands, tying it to the lesson, okay, the root cause of immigration, all right, because a lot of these people, if they were able to benefit off of the resources, all right, a lot of these people fleeing, their countries to go to, the UK and come over here to the West, if those people were able to, benefit from the resources, if they weren't so destroyed because of colonization, they would be in their lands most likely, all right, with, 2 to 4 wives, land, farms. All right, look at Libya. Okay, they use propaganda to tell you, all right, that Gaddafi was the worst thing going. But when you actually go into it, they had free electricity, they had free health care. When a family got together and got married after they graduated, whatever college or school system they had, they were given a stipend to start their family. All right. And Gaddafi wanted to leave, all right, the dollar and put gold behind the currency to boost the economy there. All right. And what did the West do? Same thing they did to Saddam Hussein. They paint him as terrorist in the news and they go and destroy. All right. Let's get that in the book of Habakkuk chapter 1 and 6. For lo, I raise up the Chaldeans, which we know the modern day Chaldeans speak to Esau, Edom, the elites, that bitter and hasty nation that shall march through the breadth of the land to possess dwelling places that are not theirs. See, and the scriptures tell you, woe to people who do these things, man. They are terrible and dreadful, and their judgment and their dignity shall precede themselves. Their horses are swifter than the leopards. They are more fierce than the evening wolves, and their horsemen shall spread themselves, and their horsemen shall come from far. They shall fly as the eagle that hastens to eat. Okay, so their horsemen represents their military, because as Esau will go to these particular lands, okay, as he will go to these particular lands, what was he looking for? Especially those, coming out of Europe after they stole that land from the Japhetic people. Okay, really, Europe lacks resources. So what did they do? All right, they went throughout the 4 corners of the earth and did what? Sought wealth. They came over here to the West. All right, we know that the British, all right, they went to India, Africa, and what did they do? Raped, robbed, and murdered. Okay, years later, okay, the people are so destroyed and their economies are so distraught and messed up because the corporations that have been built there benefit the elite and the people who conquered them. So what do? All right, they migrate. All right, after they learn the languages of their oppressors, they migrate, all right, to the countries of their oppressors. Okay. Or even if they don't know the language, they're so downtrodden, their governments are so ruined. There's war, spread everywhere. Their governments are in debt. Okay, they're as it says here. All right. Habakkuk 1 and 9. They shall come off of violence. Their faces shall sup up as the east wind. They shall gather the captivity as the sand. They shall scoff at kings, sending economic hitmen, and princes shall be a scorn unto them, and they shall deride every stronghold, for they shall heap up dust and take it. They take all of the resources, okay, and the people who are indigenous to these lands lose. Okay, so what happens? They end up leaving their lands to migrate, all right, to the UK or migrate to the West. Okay. So what Esau is trying to do, he's trying to use this whole migration crisis as a means to bring the sword, but he does not want to be held accountable for his role in it. The root cause, now this is an article from 2018. All right. The root cause of the immigration crisis, the West's legacy of violent conquest. Okay. And when you look up the word conquest, all right, let's see what it means. The word conquest, Salakia, is subjugation. All right. An assumption of control of a place or people by the use of military force, beating, defeating, conquering. Okay. Let's get the book of 2nd Esdras, the 11th chapter. All right. Now we know this is talking about Rome, but Rome was revived with the Renaissance. Okay. 2nd Esdras 11 and 40. And the fourth, Rome came and overcame all the beasts that were past and had power over the world with great fearfulness and over the whole compass of the earth with much wicked oppression. And so long time dwelt he upon the earth with deceit. For the earth hast thou not judged with truth, for thou hast afflicted the meek, hurt the peaceable. All right. Thou hast loved liars and destroyed the dwelling places of them that brought forth fruit. So when you go to a lot of these lands, they have resources. They have trees and fruits that you can just walk and pick off. All right. The tree, you know, after Esau, Edom comes, they no longer have access to that. Corporations are built on particular lands. All right. BlackRock shows up. All right. And the rest is history. OK, they use their media to wage war. All right. And before that, going back to the colonial period, going back to Columbus and his cohorts. All right. They you know, which fulfilled prophecy. All of it fulfilled prophecy. OK, as you see here, destroyed the dwellings of them that brought forth fruit and has cast down the walls of such as did thee no harm. All right. Revelation 13 and 6, and he opened his mouth and blasphemy against the Most High, the revival of Rome. The scriptures say the deadly wound was healed. Okay. Revelation 13 and 3, and I saw one of his heads, the Western Roman Empire, as it was wounded unto death, and his deadly wound was healed via the Renaissance. And all the world wondered after the beast. And what was he able to do through that revival, through that rebirth? Okay. Verse 6, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against the Most High. He brought his false Christianity, white Jesus, okay, his justification for, you know, ethnically cleansing the lands, and blasphemed his name. He blasphemed the Most High's reputation, how he looked, okay, and his tabernacle. He blasphemed the true people of the Lord using pseudoscience and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints. He lied on the angels, man. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. See? And they that dwell upon the earth shall worship him. So right now, people are subjugated under the mindset of, you know, Esau, Edom being the end all be all of him being God, especially our women. Now we're living at a time, pursuant to Micah, the 2nd chapter. All right. After his brutal destruction, verse 4, in that day shall one take up a parable against you and lament with the doleful lamentation and say, we be utterly spoiled. He have changed the portion of my people. How have he removed it from me? Turning it away, he have divided our fields. OK, so going to this article, the West legacy of violent conquest. OK. The Trump administration's cool policies towards so-called black and so-called brown migrants stem from a long history. It is time to clear the air on immigration. For centuries, Edomites, says white people, but we know they're Edomites, have arrogated unto themselves the right to invade and conquer the so-called black and browns of the world of the global south to extract minerals and other resources, including slaves and cheap labor. These invasions foreshadowed relations among countries that will bring us globalization. From the time they enslaved the Israelites, okay, which we were in Africa, but we know there's no nationality called Africans, for the convenient development of their new world, okay, which would start over here in America, okay, the elite set up the new world, all right, this was their plan, right? The fourth part of the world, they called it, okay? The purveyors of the emerging world order and their successors always fantasized that they would control the terms of global movement of the people and resources. Okay, he wants total control. Enjoying the fruits of their labor, but hating black and brown workers calls to mind early efforts, all right, to, and even when you, apartheid, in a sense, talking about Africa here, to repatriate freed slaves of Africa and fuels the current deportation of illegal immigrants Slovakia. Enjoying the fruits of their labors, but hating black and brown people. All right, as we just read, they destroyed the dwelling places of such as did them no harm. Those who brought forth fruit, meaning those who have, resources in the lands that they're in. Right. Instead of going and making deals, he went, all right, and used guile and deceit and destroyed the people. OK, enjoying the fruits of their labor, but hating the so-called black and brown workers calls to mind early efforts to repatriate freed slaves of Africa and fuels the current deportation of illegal immigrants and use of a state terror to achieve it, separating and incarcerating families as a tool of control, exclusion and domination. What is now playing out in the U.S. southern border was also used against slaves, Native Americans, and Japanese Americans, and fits the standard definition of state-sponsored terrorism. Steve Schmidt, a renowned never Trump strategist, has resigned from the Republican Party, citing the troubling historical parallels. Anti-immigration animus exemplifies the desire by Western society to have it both ways. We use you when we need you and discard you when we don't. And this goes into the book of Sirach, the 13th chapter. Okay. Sirach, the 13th chapter. In the third verse, the rich man have done wrong, and yet he threatened it withal. The poor is wronged, and he must entreat also. If thou be for his profit, he will use thee, but if thou have nothing, he will forsake thee. If thou have anything, he will live with thee. He'll go to these places and act as though he's doing a study on you and this and that. And he will make thee bear and will not be sorry for it. If he have need of thee, he will deceive thee and smile upon thee and put thee in hope, and will speak thee fair and say, what do you need? And he will shame thee by his meats until he have drawn thee dry twice or thrice. And at the last he will laugh thee to scorn afterward. When he seeth thee, he will forsake thee and shake his head at thee. So the scriptures warned about this devil. This is why here in these latter days, we're no longer falling for this devil and his lies. We use you when we need you and discard you when we don't. We can have our globalization without the demographic shift that we disdain. Predictably, this self-serving bargain would prove naive and folly, given the impulse of people that want to better their lives. Okay? The view from the street goes like this. If corporations can traverse the globe in search of higher profits, why can't workers cross the border to better their lives? So here it is. You go to these particular places and you disrupt, you destroy, you extract the resources, and these people can't, take care of their families. You no longer have access to free food. They no longer have access to their lands. They can no longer farm, right? And you justify it by saying, well, look, these people were primitive. They have a low IQ. You bring out your statistics. You start talking this bullshit and everybody believes you. But see, when they leave those countries that you destroyed and try to come, over like Venezuela, Mexico, South America, period. It's beautiful. It's full of resources, full of fruit. It's beautiful. You think people are just, hopping up from that peaceful situation and beauty and saying, I want a hamburger. I want some French fries. I want a hot dog. No, they're coming and searching to better their lives. Okay, because you are over there wreaking havoc. Okay? Anti-immigrant U.S. political elites and their aggrieved white workers have responded by crying foul. All right, they're taking our jobs. And this is how Trump was able to play on the minds of the MAGers, by passing laws, all right, that displaced, all right, and attacked the Northern Kingdom because they are over here illegally. When if we look at this, all right, in truth, right, although it fulfilled prophecy, you are illegal. But we don't want to talk about that, right? To tell people to go back to their lands. Well, where should you go back to? But he'll just justify it by saying, look, stop whining. The reason you were able to dunk a basketball, have an ice cream cone full of ice cream, watch some pornos and wear condoms is because we dominated your ass. And he says this to all of the tribes. They didn't even create a will. That cracked me up. Okay. And then you go into their science, the bell curve, blacks and brown, they're natural, so-called blacks are natural sinkers. That's why they can't swim. It's written in their DNA that they're, subhuman and dumb. And, so we had to come save them from themselves and bring our Christianity in the process. And see, now there's a shameful spewing on the glory of the Edomite. You see that? That's what's happening here. Okay? Habakkuk chapter 2 and 5. Yea, also because he transgressed by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. He wants everybody under his rule. Now he wants, all right, to colonize via AI. Okay? Now he's bringing in a digital colonization, right? Palantir, Blackstone, and all of these various different things we're seeing dominate the earth, all right, in an even greater fashion to get them more power and control than they already have. And now they want your soul. Shall not all these take up a parable against him and a taunting proverb against him and say, woe to him that increaseth in that which is not his. The resources that you stole is the reason you're ahead. Okay, the 300-year head start, close to 400-year head start that you had while you was rape, robbing, and murdering, okay, is the reason you're ahead. Not because you have a higher IQ and you've increased in that which is not yours. Okay, in order for you to succeed in tech, what do you need? Okay, you need silicon. Okay, where is that primarily located? In the earth. That's where it's located. Okay, you can look up, all right, places. Let's just let's do this. Places in the earth. Where silicon is found. Okay? Countries, I should say, maybe. Quartz, minerals, all these various different things. Okay? Countries. Of course, I know it's in the earth. China. Who dominated China? The British. Russia. Okay, they stole that from the Japhetic people. Brazil, okay, rape, robbed, and murdered. The United States, rape, robbed, and murdered. Norway, where is Norway at? Okay, yep, Europe. All right, and not to say Europe don't have any, minerals, but it lacks. Okay, but other producers are India, Australia, Spain, Germany, among many others. But these are lands that didn't originally belong to Esau. Okay, and what did he do? All right, he went and conquered. Okay, the bankers have their hands in the infrastructure of China. Why do you think China is leading the league in the tech? Because they have access to that silicon. Okay, let's just type this in. Importance. You have Silicon Valley in California of silicon and technology. Okay. Okay. Silicon is crucial to modern technology. All right. Because it is stable, abundant, affordable semiconductor, allowing the creation of microchips, transistors, and solar systems. So they went throughout the four corners of the earth to create their new world by rape, robbing, and murdering. And now we're living at a time where people are fighting back, saying, woe to him that increaseth in that which is not his. All right. Habakkuk 2:8, because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land and of the city and all that dwell therein. Woe to him. Okay, he spoiled many nations. Woe to him that coveteth in evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from all the power of evil. And he goes to these countries, destroys it, steals all of the resources, and sets up a system where he himself isn't affected by what he did. They only win and for themselves. And the people that are, destroyed, eventually they're going to leave those places because it's downtrodden. Woe to him. All right. Habakkuk 2:11. We'll read this in the NLT. Okay. It says, for the very stones in the walls cry out against you, and the beams in the ceilings echo the complaint. So your wickedness has compassed the four corners of the earth. Okay. It's a witness. Everything is a witness to your crime. Okay. Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood and established a city by iniquity. See? And Esau doesn't want to deal, all right, with this aspect of his history. So this is why the Trump administration is trying to erase the history of Babylon, tell you via pseudoscience, nigga, you should be lucky that we destroyed your ass. Okay? It says, anti-immigration U.S. political elites and their aggrieved white workers have responded by crying foul and demanding strong borders to keep out workers from poorer countries. They ignore the fact that the Western countries have long created for themselves and their corporate entities favorable terms of participation in the global economy. Okay? They did it primarily through conquest, slavery, and colonialism, which brought bountiful harvest for them. This writer noted that the British literally underwrote the down payment for the Industrial Revolution from India through tribute payments from Bengal and Bashar that allowed the mills of Manchester, of Birmingham to run. They later did it through neoliberal policies, all right, that prioritized corporate profits over workers and communities. And they're doing that today. Look what's happening here in the States. And their added privilege to afford international travels gives Westerners advantage over workers from poorer countries who cannot afford lawful international travel with its procedural juggernaut for visas. And again, the earth is for everybody. Okay? The profit of the earth the book of Ecclesiastes 5 And 9, moreover, the profit of the earth is for all. The king himself is served by the field. So everybody needs the earth. Okay? Humanity was made to benefit of all of what's in the earth. Even in the kingdom, the heathen, all right, when they're sent to their particular lands and they're going to be ruled over and governed under our rulership, but they'll have access to food, right? True medicine. All right. When you get Revelation 22 and 1, and he showed me a pure river of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. This is the throne of David being established, with the law, statutes, commandments being flooded throughout the four corners of the earth, because that's ultimately the end all be all of what we're going into. Habakkuk 2 and 14, the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as waters cover the sea. And the throne of God and the Lamb is ultimately the throne of David that's going to be established on earth. And in the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, there was the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits and yielded her fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree were the healing of the nations. Okay? The leaves of the tree, the fruit, the leaves, the herbs is going to be for the what? The healing of the nations. Therapia. They're going to get true therapy, service rendered to one by another. Through the law, statutes, and commandments, okay, you're going to have understanding of the herbs, the earth, medical service, curing. This devil goes throughout the four corners of the earth, all right, and he's spreading pseudoscience, madness, pharmakia, okay? And ultimately, we're going to be priest unto them, okay? It says, and their added privilege to afford international, we read that already. Okay, it says, it must be acknowledged that the dislocation of workers and families is a byproduct of global forces beyond their control. For decades, the interests of entire regions of the global south were subordinated to the geopolitical, all right, imperatives of a Cold War obsessed superpower and its Western allies, with democracy often as a casualty. See, we're bringing democracy. The U.S. government destabilized these regions, and we ain't even going into what the British did and the Spanish and the French. We talk about it a little bit in this lesson, but really, if we went into that, oh my goodness, man. The U.S. government destabilized these regions by backing dictators who immersed their own people, all right, immiserated their own people, all right. They undermine strongholds. They pay off people, or if the leader of that particular place says he's not down, he dies in a plane crash, he gets poisoned, he commits suicide, right? And then they set up a puppet leader that forwards their bidding. You can look up economic hitmen as well. Okay, there's a documentary on it. All right, it was taken off YouTube, but I seen some of it somewhere on YouTube. But just look up the economic hitmen documentary. It says forcing many to flee to safer countries. You see that? Where there's more order, right? Look at Haiti. Now, what did the French do to Haiti? Okay, but now you have Haitians coming over here. And what does Trump? He gets on the news and says they're eating our cats. Come on, man. The wars that engulfed Nicaragua, Guatemala, and El Salvador in the late 70s and 80s, and the resulting mass exodus and destabilization were a culmination of this interference. Furthermore, the U.S. imposed neoliberal structural adjustment policy that brought harmful, deregulation in global markets and privatization schemes that dismantled state assets, such as mass transit, weakened trade unions, imposed austerity, exacerbated inequality, and sustained unaccountable governments. No matter how ruthless, just as long as they embrace neoliberalism. Many governments in the global south were subjected, and when you look up what the global south is, okay, the global south, let's see here. The nations of the world which were regarded as having relatively low level of economic and industrial development. So they came and pretty much industrialized it. Okay. And when you look at industrial revolutions, it started in Britain, right? Started with the UK. And pretty much that has led to where we are now in the fourth industrial revolution, which is another form of colonization via tech. Okay. But we can look up here what countries. All right. I know China is one of them, I believe. Make up the global South. No, China isn't one of them. Global South, Africa, Asia. Yo, China's there. Latin America and the Caribbean. Boy, and they did a lot of dirt in these places, man. All right. Historically, they have faced challenges like colonialism and economic dependency. Now, why do they face these things? Okay. Why do they face these things? Because if they were left alone, all right, or if you were a just ruler, they could stay where the hell they were. All right. Colonialism is the policy or practice of acquiring full or partial political control over another country, occupying it with settlers. Okay. And explain. And we just got out of Christopher Columbus Day. See? Which they're trying to call it Indigenous People Day. But no, that's bull. That's BS. Give me 1 second here. All right, that's BS. Give me 1 second here. Okay. So what I have here, get a little bit of this. I'll probably do a part 2 to this. So I got to roll out. I said, and this is the brother, the elder brother Shakal sent me this. The priest that says, what is the correlation? And I just typed it in between immigration and colonialism. All right. Is immigration caused by? Excellent question. Yes, there's a strong historical and cultural correlation between immigration and colonialism. In many cases, modern immigration is a direct consequence of colonialism. Let's break it down. Colonialism reshaped how the world population flows. Colonial empires, Europe, okay, the revival of Rome came out of what? Europe, especially Britain, France, Spain, and Portugal. All right, this is the beast system that currently dominates the earth. Extracted wealth, resources, and labor from colonized lands in Africa, Asia, and America. And then they'll show you Discovery Channel, a bunch of Hamites with their lip hanging, okay, and say, see, this is what the people were doing over there, so we're good. They present the Native Americans have not built anything, have not done anything. Okay, they say these people have low IQs. To do that, they built trade routes. All right. And that's ultimately what the beast system, the EU, all right, mainly dominates, is trade. OK, it says forced migration and hierarchies that tied colonies economically to mother countries. So they made you dependent on them and not the land that was given unto you. All right, by the Lord, because these lands were given to these heathen. All right, by the Lord. Ultimately, for prophecy's sake, all right. However, it will all be given to Yahweh Shai and parted amongst the 144,000, and then the large multitude and rest of Israel will get their portion as well. But the heathen will be there. They're going to be in the kingdom. Okay. But they're going to be subjected to following our law, statutes, and commandments. See, Esau is basically trying to do a left-handed version of what we're going to do in righteousness. Okay. So when colonies later gain independence, their economies, languages, and cultures remain linked to those of former colonizers. So then they come to where you are, UK, America, and you mad. Example, many Indians, Nigerians, Jamaicans moved to Britain. All right. Algerians to France, Filipinos to the U.S. Economic imbalance and push-pull effects. Colonialism drained colonies of wealth and development of infrastructure, mainly to serve European interests. After independence, many former colonies faced underdeveloped local economies, dependence on exporting raw materials, poverty, and instability. Meanwhile, former colonial powers grew rich and industrialized. This created push factors, lack opportunity at home, and pull factors, job instability in the former empire. So yes, colonial exploitation laid the groundwork for migration patterns. See? So why are all of these people coming over here? Esau's mad, right? Let's get a scripture here real quick. All right. In the book of Jeremiah, I believe. Jeremiah 50:37. Okay. A sword is upon their horses and upon their chariots, and all the mingled people that are in the midst of her, and they shall be as women. A sword is upon her treasures, and they shall be robbed. Okay. So the Lord is going to address your brutal rule, man. Okay. It's going to be destroyed. A drought is upon her waters, and she shall be dried up, for it is the land of graven images, and they are mad upon their idols. Okay. And then it goes into how, Russia and these different countries are going to be used to destroy you, man. That's why in verse 46, at the noise of the taking of Babylon, the earth is moved and a cry is heard amongst the nations. Because all of these nations that you've dominated are dependent on you. Right? They worship you. They've worshiped this beast system. Even though some of them, they're trying to figure out a way around it, but they're still drunk off of it. And now they're all following you into your fourth industrial revolution. All right. So they can have their piece of the pie in the New World Order. OK. Revelation 18:8. Therefore shall her, America, Babylon, her plague shall come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord that judgeth her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her. Why ain't they in hell after the fire came? Because the fire, the lake of fire, is going to be here on earth. America, all right, Babylon the Great, okay, as well as different parts of the earth are going to be burning because of the war. All right. But the chariots, along with the missiles, are going to finish this place off. All right. In one day, 1 hour. OK, so the kings of the earth who have committed fornication with her. All right. By buying into that dollar. OK, that's one of the main ways, taking on her democracy, have lived deliciously with her, shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off of the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. Okay, America is a big consumer. All right. They also sell, but America is a big consumer, especially, all right, from the products of China. Well, now, Trump is talking about tariffs. That's only going to, all right, make it harder on the consumer. Okay. Because of colonization, European languages, education systems, and religion, it made migration easier. So these people in their lands were learning your European languages, they were educated in your systems. They learned your false Christianity. So when they come over here, you get mad. Neo-colonization and global inequality. After the formal colonization ended, neo-colonial structures, global trade system, multinational corporations, IMF, World Bank debt, keep poor nations dependent on rich ones. Come on, man. As industries, resources, and wealth still flow northward, people from the global south follow that same path, seeking survival or opportunity. The movement of people follows the earlier movement of the empire and capital. Social and political consequences. Immigration also often reverses the colonial gaze. Those once colonized now living amongst their colonizers. This sometimes produces tension, racism, all right, xenophobia in the host nations, as the colonizer is confronted with the human consequence of an empire. So he's confronted with the evils that he did, all right, by the people that he destroyed as they learn their true history. And now he wants to pass laws and legislation for you to shut the F up and label you a demon and wage war on you. Okay? So modern immigration patterns trace back to colonial history, point blank, period. Okay, then I said, does colonization and immigration mimic anything or have any parallels to the Western Roman Empire? Yes, absolutely. The Western Roman Empire is one of the strongest historical mirrors of modern colonialism and immigration. In fact, the Roman system laid the blueprint of how later European powers, Spain, Portugal, France, Britain, America, the small hats, build their empires and manage subjected people. Okay. And we'll get into this in another lesson. All right. Because basically this goes to the image of the beast speaking and living today. See, people still got that stupid breakdown of, all right, the image of the beast being a white picture of Caesar Borgia. But it's the system we live in. It mimics the ancient Western Roman Empire. It mimics the Greco-Roman Empire as well. Roman Empire, military conquest of provinces, modern colonization, military and economic colonization. Colonies feeding wealth to Rome, global South economies serving global North. Citizenship for assimilation, Western and civilized. So you can pause it and look. All right. But migrants from conquered lands, immigrants from former colonies. It's the same thing. Fear of the barbarians, fear of the immigrants and refugees, because the Western Roman Empire, all right, was full of what they call barbarians from countries they conquered. Empire collapse and overreach, Western decline and global backlash. So you devils are living at the brute end, all right, of karma. See? Nothing is going to work for you either. Okay? Isaiah 14 and 21. Prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. And that's what they did. Okay? And when you go into it, all right, what they did, Isaiah 14 and 6, he who smote the people, I'll start at 5, the Lord have broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people in wrath with the continual stroke, and that ruled the nations in anger, is persecuted and none hinder it. See? And you getting ready to lose, man. The whole earth is at rest. All right. It said he ruled the nations in anger. All right. With the continual stroke. And when he wasn't stroking you, laws were being passed that messed you up. Okay. Legislation that kept you from moving forward. Okay. This is what Lucifer did. The word Lucifer means illuminated one. This is what the enlightened ones, the Illuminati, so to speak, did. That's what the word Lucifer means. Hayalal. So when it says, how thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, is speaking of Esau, Edom, the rulers of this world, falling from their lofty position in which they went through and weakened the nations. As it says here, he weakened the nations. And now he's at a point where he's trying to elevate himself via his AI into a god. So what we'll do is a part 2 to this, because I'm pretty sure there's another brother, maybe, you know, Elder Ariala, the Elder Requia Juan, that probably can chime in and give some very good insight as well. But I just wanted to touch on that, man. The root cause of immigration, which he's now crying about, is what he did. But Esau does not want to hold himself accountable. Okay? The scriptures say, Zechariah 11:5, who possess or slay them and hold themselves not guilty. Okay? Psalm 73 says what? Psalm 73 and 6. Therefore pride compasseth them about as a chain, violence covereth them as a garment. Their eyes stand out with fatness. They have more than can wish. They are corrupt and speak wickedly concerning oppression. They speak loftily. See, they speak wickedly when it comes to oppression, man. Okay? They scoff and only speak evil in their pride. They seek to crush others, and they speak wickedly, all right, when they're called out. This is what MAGA represents. This is what it's all about. When they talk about bringing back this white Christian nationalist and they go into all of these statistics, they're tapping back into this aspect of who they really are, and they don't want to hide it anymore. Without slavery, your ass would be in a grass hut. And this is his sentiment to everywhere he dominated. All right. So there's more in the article that we'll get into, but I just wanted to respond to the brother's videos. Hopefully y'all edified. Shalom.